Hello and a warm welcome to News Bulletin from CBATV, the voice of East Africa and beyond, here in Hargeisa, the capital of Somaliland. My name is Ajara Ahmed Tijani. First, the headlines. United Arab Emirates opens 2 hospitals in Somaliland. Hargeisa Cultural Center launches new historical exhibition. United States military says a troops removal from Somalia complete. Kenya reports 80 new COVID infections, death toll of 1,731. At least 83 killed in fighting in Sudan's Darfur. South Africa COVID-19 deaths exceed 37,000 mark. And now the news in full. A delegation from the Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan Foundation has opened 2 hospitals in the Republic of Somaliland. The first is the Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan Hospital in the city of Berbera, northwestern Somalia, and the second is a specialized hospital for women, childbirth and neonatal care in the city of Bur'o, the second largest city in Somaliland. The move comes in line with directive of President His Highness Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan and the support of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi and Deputy Supreme Commander of the UAE Armed Forces, and the direct follow-up of Sheikh Mansour bin Zayed Al Nahyan, Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Presidential Affairs and Chairman of the Foundation. The gesture, implemented by the Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan Foundation, is part of the UAE's humanitarian initiatives to alleviate the suffering of the underprivileged people, especially given the challenges facing the health sector in Somaliland. In light of the worsening health conditions the world is witnessing during COVID-19 pandemic, the hospital in Berbera was inaugurated by Abdirahman Sailei, Vice President of Somaliland, and Omar Ali Abdullah, Minister of Health of Somaliland, in the presence of a number of senior officials from both sides. Sailei praised the distinguished relations that bind his country with the UAE and expressed his appreciation for the humanitarian and developmental assistance provided by the UAE government to Somaliland. He also thanked the Khalifa Foundation for its charitable initiatives in the country, noting that thousands of families in Bur'o and Berbera will receive excellent health care thanks to this Emirati donation. The Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan Hospital has a capacity of 40 beds with a total area spanning 1,351 square meters. The hospital was also equipped with modern medical devices and a backup generator. The second hospital, which also has a 40-bed capacity, was inaugurated by the UAE delegation and the Somaliland Minister of Health. The Health Minister thanked the UAE leadership for funding the project, saying that it will significantly improve the health care being provided to women and newborn babies. The hospital covers a total area of 1,351 square meters and features an operating room, 8 patient rooms, 6 clinics, including a dental clinic, 3 intensive care rooms, and 3 emergency rooms. The hospital also hopes to reduce the rate of neonatal and maternal mortality. Still in Somaliland, tapping into the need for cultural awareness and a link between history and future, the Hargeisa Cultural Center has launched Bandiga Agabdagamedka in the capital city.
In a colorful ceremony to mark the start of the exhibition on traditional artifacts, the center launches new historical exhibition to show the next generation the creativity they had in the past and their skills. The exhibition launch, which was attended by various influential members, was officially launched by the chairman of the center, Jama Musa Jama. The exhibition, which runs until the 4th of February, aims to create cross-generation knowledge, transfer, and build on learning the indigenous creative ways of handcrafting that are lost in the community, mainly due to imported items. The exhibition, which has the sole purpose of displaying artifacts with cultural significance, as well as tapping into art culture and traditional items that shape society, and help Somalilanders connect with their history. While speaking to CBATV, the chairman, Mr. Jama Musa Jama, stated that he hopes the exhibition will attract people of all ages, especially children of school-going age who would be interested in learning about their history.
This month we opted to display the artifacts, the cultural material, the concept that Somalilanders used to have for centuries and centuries. Art, culture, and traditional items shape the society and make what we call collective ownership, collective history, collective culture and art of the same society, and connect us to each other. Each sector of society feel to be part of it. For that reason, the Hargeisa Cultural Center this month opens a wonderful art display, which is based from the Somali hat, Aqal Somali, the traditional Somali hat, up to all the material that used to build and created by artifacts by the blacksmith of Somaliland societies, and to produce everything that the household needed in order to do their daily life.
The elder generation is also welcome to reconnect and relive how life was for them. Other speakers at the event pointed out the necessity for cultural inclusion and awareness, as well as promoting the concept Somalilander has had for years.
The United States military says troops withdrawal from Somalia is complete in one of the last actions of President Donald Trump's presidency. Some experts have warned that the withdrawal of an estimated 700 U.S. military personnel comes at the worst possible time for Somalia, as the Al-Qaeda-linked Al-Shabaab extremist group improves its bomb-making skills and continues to attack military and civilian targets, even in the capital, Mogadishu. The withdrawal comes less than a month before Somalia is set to hold a national election. The United States personnel trained and supported Somali forces, including its elite special forces, in counter-terror operations. They are being moved to other African nations, such as neighboring Kenya and Djibouti, home of the only permanent U.S. military base in Africa. But U.S. Africa Command spokesman Colonel Chris Cairns will not say how many are going where. Asked whether the administration of President-elect Joe Biden will reverse the withdrawal, Cairns replied in an email, "It would be inappropriate for us to speculate or engage in hypotheticals." Cairns said the operations enter its next phase of periodic engagement with Somali security forces. He would not go into details. The withdrawal was announced late last year with a January 15 deadline. The U.S. military, which has carried out a growing number of airstrikes against Al-Shabaab and a small band of fighters linked to the Islamic State group during Trump's administration, says it will continue to pressure Al-Shabaab. The extremist group has an estimated 5,000 to 10,000 fighters. Those Somali forces, even U.S. assessments have said, are not ready to take over responsibility for the country's security, especially as a 19,000-strong multinational African Union forces is also set to withdraw by the end of this year. The United States Africa Command Commander, General Stephen Townsend, noted no serious injuries or significant loss of equipment, despite significant efforts to target by Al-Shabaab during the intense operation to remove the U.S. personnel. Townsend on Saturday visited Manda Bay in Kenya, where the U.S. Africa Command said substantial enhancements have been made to physical security after a deadly Al-Shabaab attack a year ago destroyed U.S. aircraft used against it in Somalia. The United Nations Refugee Agency, UNHCR, on Sunday said that more than 58,000 Ethiopian refugees fled into neighboring Sudan amid military confrontation in Ethiopia's northern Tigray region. A total of 58,612 Ethiopian refugees have been registered in Sudan since military confrontations between the federal and regional forces in the Tigray region broke out in November 2020. The agency said in its latest situation update, According to the UNHCR, in the bid to mitigate potential health and security risk, the UN body has been working with partners to relocate refugees to camps away from the border, and 26,864 refugees have been moved to the designated refugee camps. The Ethiopian government is presently providing protection to nearly 1 million refugees, mainly from South Sudan, Somalia, Eritrea, and Sudan, who are being hosted across 26 camps and non-camp locations. New satellite image of a refugee camp in Ethiopia's embattled Tigray region show more than 400 structures have been badly damaged in what a research group believes in the latest intentional attack by fighters. The report by the Great Britain-based DX Open Network non-profit shared with the Associated Press says it is likely that the fire events of 16 January are yet another episode in a series of military incursions on the camp, as reported by the United Nations Refugee Agency. The Shimelba camp is one of 4 that hosted 96,000 refugees from nearby Eritrea, where fighting erupted in early November between Ethiopia. From Kenya, 80 more people have tested positive for COVID-19, raising the number of declared infections in Kenya to 99,162. The Health Ministry reported this on Sunday, saying 3,733 samples were analyzed in the past 24 hours.
It is three-pronged. Testing persons suspected to have it, tracing those who come into contact with when feasible, and isolating those individuals so that they don't spread it to others.
The Kenyan ministry reported this on Sunday, saying 3,733 samples were analyzed in the past 24 hours. This raised the total number of samples tested since March 13, 2020, when Kenya confirmed its first case of the disease to 1,125,679. The ministry further reported the recovery of 26 more patients, pushing the total to 82,350. 24 of them were treated at home and 2 in hospital. Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe said the death toll increased by 3 to 1,731. Of the patients, 62 were Kenyans and 18 foreigners, 48 male and 32 female. The youngest 11 years old and the oldest 81. Nairobi County accounted for 62 of the cases, Murray 4, Busia 3, Kiambu 2, and Kericho, Kilifi, Mukeno, Mombasa, Nyanjru, and Usain 1 each. By Sunday, 699 patients had been admitted to hospitals around the country, while 1,642 were in home-based isolation and care program. Of those in hospital, 30 were intensive care units, 14 of them on voluntary support, 13 on supplemental oxygen, and 3 under observation. Another 13 patients were also supplementation oxygen, but the general wards and a high dependency unit.
And to Uganda, Ugandan politician Robert Kyagulanyi, popularly known as Bobi Wine, has called on the international community to demand for his release from house arrest after a disputed election where returned President Yoweri Museveni to the office for a 6th term.
Our lives are in danger. Having survived assassination attempts on the campaign trail and now being confined at home, still we are being attacked at home.
Ugandan politician Robert Kyagulanyi, popularly known as Bobi Wine, has called on the international community to demand for his release from house arrest after a disputed election that returned President Yoweri Museveni to the office for his 6th term as president. Bobi Wine, who came second in the presidential election, has not left his home since he went out to vote on Thursday, and has said his home is surrounded by hundreds of police and soldiers.
I thought I should inform the world that our lives are in danger, and should anything happen to us, at least we have had the opportunity while still alive to expose everything that is being plotted on our lives. Our only security is letting the world know what is happening to our lives. It's letting the world know what the government of Uganda under General Museveni is doing to us. I am here alone with my wife, having sent our children away to avoid them witnessing this humiliation and keeping them out of danger.
On the day leading to the elections, the private security company that has been guarding Mr. Wine's home for 12 years was ordered to withdraw their service, leaving him alone in a compound now surrounded by armed soldiers. Ugandan authorities have, however, stated that the military presence around his home is intended to offer him security. With the house arrest, the popular Ugandan opposition said he has been unable to meet his party officials to decide on a way forward, but he disclosed that they are putting all non-violent, legal and constitutional options on the table to challenge the election, which includes peaceful and legal protest. Although President Museveni said the election was the cleanest in the country's history, but the opposition leader disagreed, saying that he has video footage of ballot box stuffing, soldiers forcing people to vote in a certain way, or pre-ticking ballots when internet connection is restored across the country.
There was no secret ballot in most polling stations. The military gave people pre-ticked ballots. They gave them pre-ticked ballot papers. In other cases, some people were ordered to vote from the desk in the presence of everyone. Several of our phone numbers, including mine and my wife, have been switched off. They've been disconnected illegally. The military is deployed everywhere. The dictatorship is in panic.
Meanwhile, Bobi Wine has called for international sanctions against Museveni, the release of political prisoners, the restoration of the internet, an international audit of the election, and for all the nations to kindly re-audit their relationship with Uganda. Issuing the final results on Saturday, the Electoral Commission said the vote had been peaceful, with a turnout of 54% of the almost 18 million registered voters. But the EU, United Nations, and several rights groups have raised concerns. Aside from an African Union mission, no major international group monitored the votes. Kamil Sadiq reporting for CBATV.
Still in Uganda, internet access in Uganda has been restored after it was blocked before country underwent a general election on Thursday as opposition condemned police brutality.
Internet access in Uganda has been restored after it was blocked before the country underwent a general election on Thursday. The restoration ends the 5 days of blackout for Ugandans that would have loved to connect to the internet during the election and pandemic time. The blackout came on the eve of a presidential election in which longtime leader Yoweri Museveni faced popular opposition singer Bobi Wine despite a campaign marked by brutal crackdowns. Uganda reported difficulties accessing the internet via mobile devices and wireless connections a day before the election. As of today, Ugandans had experienced about 100 hours of internet blackout, and real-time network data show that connectivity was only 13% of ordinary levels. Last week, the Uganda Communications Commission issued an order where they compelled telecommunication companies to immediately suspend any access and use of social media and online messaging platforms. Internet disruptions arrive around the world in an age where the internet's importance is greater than ever. In 2016, the United Nations Human Rights Council passed resolutions where they condemned measures to intentionally prevent or disrupt access to the internet and termed it as a human right. Kamil Sadiq, CBATV.
Heavy rains has displaced thousands of people from their homes in Burundi, Gutamba, Mutimbuzi region. The region is located 5 kilometers from Bujumbura province.
Mutimbuzi region. The region is located 5 kilometers from Bujumbura province. This region has experienced heavy rainfall since Monday, January 11th, after Ruzizi River, a tribute of Lake Tanganyika, overflowed, causing havoc. The victims are now asking for protection, asking the government or other benefactors to build dikes to protect the Ruzizi River from our flood city. For environmental experts, in addition to the effect of climate change, the situation is aggravated by poor land planning. These floods are caused by climate change, but there's another aggravating factor, which is land planning. The National Platform for Risk Prevention and Disaster Management has recommended that people should be relocated from this border area of the DRC. This is the second time that this region has been affected by flooding in less than a year. In May 2020, floods displaced more than 27,000 people, majority of them still alive in displaced sites.
Over 80 people have been killed in 2 days of ongoing clashes in Sudan's west of Darfur, doctors said Sunday, just over 2 weeks since a long-running peacekeeping mission ended operations.
Mtumbezi region. The region is located 5 kilometers from Bujumbura province. This region has experienced heavy rainfall since Monday, January 11th, after Ruzizi River, a tribute of Lake Tanganyika, overflowed, causing havoc. The victims are now asking for protection, asking the government or other benefactors to build dikes to protect the Ruzizi River from our flood city. For environmental experts, in addition to the effect of climate change, the situation is aggravated by poor land planning. These floods are caused by climate change, but there's another aggravating factor, which is land planning. The National Platform for Risk Prevention and Disaster Management has recommended that people should be relocated from this border area of the DRC. This is the second time that this region has been affected by flooding in less than a year. In May 2020, floods displaced more than 27,000 people, majority of them still alive in displaced sites. Aggravating factor, which is land planning. The National Platform for Risk Prevention and Disaster Management has recommended that people should be relocated from this border area of the DRC. The region has been affected by flooding in less than a year. In May 2020, floods displaced more than 27,000 people, majority of them still alive in displaced sites. Aggravating factor, which is land planning. The National Platform for Risk Prevention and Disaster Management has recommended that people should be area of the DRC. The region has been affected by flooding. In May 2020, floods displaced more than 27,000 people, majority of them sites. Aggravating factor, which is land planning. The National Platform for Risk Prevention and Disaster Management has recommended that people should be area of the DRC. In May 2020, floods people, majority of them sites. Land planning. The National Platform for Risk Prevention recommended that people should be in May 2020, floods land planning. The National Platform for Risk Prevention recommended that people should be land planning. The National Platform for Risk Prevention recommended that people should be land planning. The National Platform recommended that people should be
Still in North Africa, clashes erupted in Tunisia for a 4th consecutive evening on Sunday. In Etademin, a neighborhood close to capital Tunis, the youth hauled rocks at riot police who responded with tear gas. Dozens in the capital and other cities have been arrested during the nationwide violent demonstrations, which have seen shops and cars smashed and looted. The protest began during the start of the coronavirus lockdown on January 14th, which was 10 years to the day since the autocratic leader Ben Ali fled from power. But in this working-class neighborhood, no political slogans were heard, and it is unclear what the young want. Abdul Munain, a waiter at a nearby cafe, said those in the streets were bored adolescents but blamed the violence on the country's post-revolution political class. Despite the revolution a decade ago, many Tunisians are increasingly angered by poor public services and the political class, with high consumer prices, shrinking GDP, and about a third of young people unemployed. The health crisis and ensuing economic misery have pushed growing numbers of Tunisians to seek to leave the country. Interior Ministry spokesman Khalid Khayouni said earlier Sunday that dozens of young people, mostly aged between 14 and 17, had been arrested after they took to the streets during previous evenings to loot and vandalize shop fronts and cars. Videos circulating on social media showed young people burning tires, insulting the police and looting shops. Sosi, usually a magnet of foreign holiday makers but hit hard by the pandemic, also saw rioting. Tunisia had been under a nighttime curfew even before the recent lockdown, a 4-day measure meant to expire on Sunday at midnight. Now to South Africa. South Africa's death toll to COVID-19 has now surpassed 37,000 mark after 254 people passed away on Sunday. According to the latest data, 72 deaths were recorded in the West Cape, 59 in Gauteng, 40 in KwaZulu-Natal, 26 in Northwest, 22 in the Eastern Cape, 16 in Mpumalanga, 16 in Free State, and 6 in the Northern Cape. Dozens in the capital and other cities have been arrested during the nationwide violent demonstrations, which have seen shops and cars smashed and looted. The protest began during the start of the coronavirus lockdown on January 14th, which was 10 years to the day since the autocratic leader Ben Ali fled from power. But in this working-class neighborhood, no political slogans were heard, and it is unclear what the young want. Abdul Munain, a waiter at a nearby cafe, said those in the streets were bored adolescents but blamed the violence on the country's post-revolution political class. Despite the revolution a decade ago, many Tunisians are increasingly angered by poor public services and the political class, with high consumer prices, shrinking GDP, and about a third of young people unemployed. The health crisis and ensuing economic misery have pushed growing numbers of Tunisians to seek to leave the country. Interior Ministry spokesman Khalid Khayouni said earlier Sunday that dozens of young people, mostly aged between 14 and 17, had been arrested after they took to the streets during previous evenings to loot and vandalize shop fronts and cars. Videos circulating on social media showed young people burning tires, insulting the police and looting shops. Sosi, usually a magnet of foreign holiday makers but hit hard by the pandemic, also saw rioting. Tunisia had been under a nighttime curfew even before the recent lockdown, a 4-day measure meant to expire on Sunday at midnight. Social media showed young people burning tires, insulting the police and usually a magnet of foreign holiday makers but hit hard by the pandemic, also saw rioting. Tunisia had been under a nighttime curfew even before the recent lockdown, a 4-day measure meant to expire. The National Guard is running additional background checks on its guardsmen ahead of President-elect Joe Biden's inauguration on Wednesday in an attempt to weed out potential extremists.
The images are no less shocking even with the passing of time. New videos now emerged of the chaos and the violence. The mob turning on police and spraying them.
The move comes following the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol building, in which a corporal in the Virginia National Guard, Jacob Fracker, was one of several members of law enforcement arrested in connection with the riots. The National Guard spokesman, Major Matt Murphy, told press that the reserve branch was working with the Secret Service and the FBI to determine which service members supporting the National Special Security event for the inauguration require additional background screening. Murphy said the Guard is also conducting additional training, that if they see or hear something that is not appropriate, they should report it to their chain of command. A National Guard reservist and his co-worker were both charged with federal offences after they took a selfie at the riots and posted it on social media. While neither man was on duty at the time of the insurrection, both have been placed on administrative leave. While the Secret Service is overseeing the security logistics for the inauguration, the Guard, along with local law enforcement and military groups, will be taking part in providing the actual muscle for the event. In previous years, the inauguration ceremonies have been threatened by foreign terrorist groups and sympathizers, but this year, Murphy said, the focus is on continuing to identify people who participated in or were sympathetic to the attack on the Capitol. Any type of activity that involves violence, civil disobedience, or a breach of the peace may be punishable under the Uniform Code of Military Justice or under state or federal law, he said.
Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny was arrested Sunday at a Moscow airport as he tried to enter the country from Germany, where he had spent 5 months recovering from nerve agent poisoning that he blames on Kremlin.
DP-936 was just a few minutes into its descent towards Moscow's Vnukovo airport, where thousands of supporters of poisoned Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny were waiting to meet him on his return to Russia, when the flight captain said he could not land as planned. This was the first sign to those on board that Navalny's return from Berlin, where he had been treated since August after being attacked in Russia with a military-grade nerve agent Novichok, was not going smoothly. His lawyer, who was also on board, had said she did not know whether the Kremlin's most vocal and effective critic would be arrested. Navalny, 44, who is President Vladimir Putin's most prominent and determined foe, brushed off concerns about arrest as he boarded the plane in Berlin. He entered Terminal D with an energetic step, stepping in front of a glowing wall-sized panel showing the Kremlin and the Russian flag. He said he had never not considered returning home. Then, at border control, things took a turn for the worse. Standing in the narrow corridor of the glass-paneled passport control booth, Navalny was approached by an official who asked him to step away to clarify the circumstances of his entry. His lawyer asked on what grounds he was being prevented from entering, but did not receive a clear response. 4 police officers in black face masks came up to the booth and also demanded Navalny come with them. "Are you detaining me?" Navalny asked. "Are you detaining me?" he said repeatedly. In that case, he said he would like his lawyer to join. Navalny himself, as far as anyone knew, remained in the airport's transit zone. Moscow's prison service said that Navalny had been detained for alleged violations of his suspended prison sentence and would be held in custody until a court hearing later this month. The outgoing U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said the U.S. strongly condemns the decision to arrest Navalny and called his detention the latest in a series of attempts to silence Navalny and other opposition figures and independent voices who are critical of Russian authorities.
From the world of sports, Abdulaziz reports that John Stones scored twice for Manchester City as Pep Guardiola's resurgent title challengers cruised past Crystal Palace to go second in Premier League.
John Stones scored twice for Manchester City as Pep Guardiola's resurgent title chasers cruised past Crystal Palace to go second in the Premier League. Hours after Liverpool and late as Manchester United share a goalless draw, City capitalised to move within 2 points of top spot with their successive league victory. Stones opened the scoring with a header from Kevin De Bruyne's delightful cross, as the Belgian made 100 assists in all competitions since joining the club in 2015. The hosts were already in complete control when Ilkay Gundogan added a superb second from the edge of the box shortly after the break. Stones never scored for Premier League for City, then smashed in his second from a corner before Raheem Sterling curled in a free kick for City's fourth. Guardiola's side go on top of the Premier League if they win their game in hand, while defeat means Crystal Palace will remain in 13th position. Lionel Messi was shown a first red card of his Barcelona career as they lost to Atletico Bilbao in the Spanish Cup final. Messi, in his 753rd appearance for Barcelona, swung at Izzy Felibre in the final seconds of the extra time, an incident spotted by the VAR. Barcelona led twice through Griezmann, but Oscar De Marcos and Valverde in the final minute scored as Atletico replied each time. Inaki Williams scored a fine winner. The game in Sevilla was set to be remembered as an entertaining encounter for the Athletic Club's second trophy since 1985, until the late drama. Messi lashed out at goal scorer Felibre of the ball in the 120th minute. The referee missed the clash at the time before viewing it on the VAR screen and dismissing Messi. Antonio Conte guided Inter Milan to victory against his former club Juve as the Nerazzurri moved level on points with AC Milan at the top of the Serie A. Arturo Vidal's headed first goal opener was the first top-flight goal in Italy for almost 6 years, having last scored for Juve in May 2015. Nicolas Barella, who created the first, made it 2 with a fine run and finish. Champions Juve were lackluster at the San Siro and remained 5th. Andrea Pirlo's side are 7 points drift of 2 Milan clubs, as AC Milan can edge clear at the summit again if they win at Cagliari on Monday.
And with that sports report, we've come to the end of the bulletin. English news came to you from CBATV, the voice of East Africa and beyond, and the only English-speaking station in the region. My name is Ajara Ahmed Tijani. Bye for now.